On February 22nd, the Regent Park SDP Planning Committee meeting was positive. The Planning Committee's core purpose is to recommend strategic directions to the SDP Stakeholders Table, ensuring effective meetings and supporting working groups in their preparations. They talked about meeting frequency, leaning towards bi-weekly. Quorum was debated, but they kept weekly meetings with cancellations based on the agenda. Evening meetings were rescheduled for better community participation. Surveys were streamlined, focusing on RPNA and SDP memberships. Physical copies will be distributed, and various platforms used for outreach. Recognition of community contributions was touched upon, with plans for committee composition and potential agenda recognition. Despite time constraints, the meeting showed collaboration on community involvement. The SDP remains committed to inclusive decision-making and empowering residents in shaping Regent Park's future. Now let's go to the meeting.
We acknowledge all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent.
Thank you. And then Jeff, here's your purpose.
Right. The committee makes recommendations to the SDP Stakeholders Table on strategic directions and action priorities, intercommittee alignment, coordination, stakeholder, and resident engagement by supporting the SDP Stakeholder Table to ensure that meetings are effective, by supporting the 4 work groups to be prepared to report at the SDP Stakeholder Table meetings, by addressing requirements and or requests that need a quick response, by identifying information and or expertise that stakeholders require in order to make sound and informed decisions, and finally by developing facilitation approaches that increase the capacity of all stakeholders to engage in discussion and decision making.
Thank you, Jeff. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll review the agenda really quickly. And then once I'm done with the standing agenda items, Walied, I'll give it back to you to facilitate. So the first item we have, depending on if Joel makes it home in time, we may do this later on in the meeting, but it's the proposal to meet less often or shorter meetings. And that will be based on the relevant agenda that we have for that day. And then using the time that we have left, so time that we would save from meetings, to do other things such as shaping culture training, outreach, and things of that nature. After that, we have changing day of evening meetings to accommodate SDP members, residents, or in brackets, residents until April 4th. And the options that we had from the previous meeting were 3 p.m. instead of 5 p.m., all meetings at 1 p.m., and canceling evening meetings for March because it does coincide with Ramadan. And then Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday evenings were an option. However, after speaking to some residents, Tuesday afternoon before access to rec is another option. The item after that, we have student placements present survey draft, which is Abba and Jeff. They had time to work on or take the feedback that the planning committee provided. And today they'll be presenting the final draft, and then hopefully we can come up with an action plan. And then we have EED support, finding resident co-chairs. So we have some updates from EED, which I'll be presenting. We have seeking funding to hire a workforce integrator and seeking support for resident outreach for new co-chairs, and elections will be held in March. After we have recognition, how do we recognize the work of members presented by Walied? And we have the location of the STP's Stakeholders Table meeting. And this is just to get consensus so we can make that decision on location and get a head start with all the work. After having read all the agenda items, does anyone feel like there's something missing or any amendments that need to be made or anything like that? And as I see your hand raised, go ahead.
Sorry, what do you mean getting co-chairs for who, for what? Is it for the other committees or?
For the EED. EED currently has no co-chairs. Ibrahim Afra has stepped down as well, so we're just supporting EED, the work group, to find resident co-chair.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay, thank you.
it's just an announcement, so everyone's aware of it.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, so I just want to give some context, Ines. We had a meeting with stakeholders of the EED working group. I think you were invited to that meeting, and we made a decision on a process by which we recruit both market and TCC residents as co-chairs. We have interest from several, but actually now we have interests in both TCC and market co-chair position. So I think we might have an election for those positions.
Nice, thank you for that, Walied.
Okay.
Are
Okay,
there
so
any?
I guess we'll get
Sorry, go ahead,
any
Walied.
changes to that. Go ahead, Ishmael. I'll step in my
Ishmael, sorry to interrupt, but
minutes,
Waleed,
kind
you're
of
breaking. We
so I
can,
just want to make sure. But yeah, I'm connecting over with my phone so you could hear.
okay. Yeah, because you keep on breaking and it's hard to understand what you're saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any proposal of agenda items for future meetings? Anything that we feel like I left out or we left out in this meeting? Any hands? Anything in the chat? I see nothing. Gail has entered. Welcome, Gail. Our next facilitator, I will be asking Ilona, and if Ilona is unavailable, I'm just going through the same list in alphabetical order. If Ilona is unable to, Inez, I will reach out to you. And then upcoming SDP events. So in the upcoming week, we have agenda planning next Tuesday as usual, access to recreation at 4:30 on the 27th. And on the 29th, we have evaluations and benchmarks at 1 p.m. Everyone's welcome to join. And planning committee at 5 p.m. as usual. Any updates on city staff and councilor meetings? There are no updates. We're still waiting to speak with Richard. I say we, but the co-chairs, SDP Stakeholders Table co-chairs are waiting to meet with the city staff to share some updates, exchange updates rather. That's it for the standing agenda items. Joel, so I'll ask you, are you home yet? Let's see if Joel unmutes.
Hi, I'm still just getting settled, so I'll just be a little bit yet.
What do we
So having a wrap-up email. No,
sorry, Gail, do you mind muting yourself? Why don't we give Joel a minute or two and then we'll start off with his proposal because it's 30 minutes of the meeting. So I just want to make sure. So Joel, just let us know whenever you're ready and we'll start off with your agenda item.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for your patience. Yeah, it was pretty simple proposal. I mean, in the fall, we had begun to test out meeting every couple of weeks, and we started meeting every week again in order to make sure we were ready for the stakeholders table meeting that was coming up. But I just wanted to put out the idea, the proposal that we again shift our meeting schedule to every couple of weeks, and that we could continue to meet in alternating weeks for other purposes, such as shaping culture or outreach or so on. But that would be sort of wouldn't be a planning committee meeting per se. So pretty simple, and just wanted to put that on the table and see what people think of it.
I just want to say that I think meeting bi-weekly is not a bad idea, especially because of the challenges on Thursday evenings. So I think, yeah, I like the idea of meeting bi-weekly, but maybe when we're planning for the SDP progress report back meeting, if we want to as a committee, or if folks want to meet in between those meetings, we can do so as well. So that's my feedback on that proposal.
Oh,
Yes, Michael, go ahead.
so I think this is more connected to whether or not we really want to have 4 stakeholders table meetings, even if we include the report back as one of them. Because last year we really didn't have anything other than the one decision-making stakeholders table meeting. So if that's the norm, that we're really not going to have meetings of stakeholders more often, then we wouldn't probably need as many planning committee meetings. But if we are actually intending to have the 4 stakeholders table meetings, then we'd barely be able to maybe cancel 1 or 2 meetings in each quarter. So I don't know, I think that it has much more to do with the stakeholders table than with the course. The course is going to be over in a couple of weeks, and we'll deal with that separately through some changes in schedule. But in terms of how many meetings we need on an ongoing basis, that is totally dependent on whether we really do think it's useful and necessary to have 4 stakeholders table meetings in a year. So I would suggest that we don't make any decision on the frequency of planning committee meetings until we are actually more clear about what we are really going to do with stakeholders tables. So if we do go ahead with continuing with the 4 meetings, which would mean also having to do June and September, which haven't always happened. So that's up to us. If we want to do those, then I would suggest the only time we could really cancel meetings, aside from the breaks on the yearly schedule that we take, is maybe after each stakeholders table meeting, there would be 1 or 2 canceled meetings. And probably we'd have to figure out which ones that should be, more likely the afternoon ones than the evening ones. But I would not make it a general practice to go for meeting every 2 weeks and then make it an exception if we meet more often. It'd be more the other way around, unless we really don't feel it's no longer necessary to have 4 stakeholders tables in a year. If that's the case, then we could make it more like the norm is less planning committee meetings and change that as an exception. But right now, I would keep the weekly meetings as the norm and just maybe add in a few more canceled meetings throughout the year. Is everything okay with the sound? I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah, no, we can hear you, Michael. Everything's okay with the sound. We're just waiting on other folks to weigh in. Joel is asking for proposals or feedback on that proposal. I'm assuming the proposal is to meet less frequently, but there's no. I basically amended the proposal so that it's bi-weekly. We meet every 2 weeks. And I don't think that we have to cancel any of our stakeholder table meetings. We just can meet in between planning meetings on logistics and other needs.
In that case, I would rather say that all the meetings are planning committee meetings, but just say that the agenda will be alternate between regular planning committee business and other types of business. I wouldn't want to give people the impression that most of the
Okay.
meetings are canceled.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, Michael. Okay, that's an amendment to the proposal, I guess. Does anyone have any thoughts? We'd love to hear from Ines, Adonis, whoever else is. Jeff, how about you too? Tell us what your thoughts are. Go ahead, Jeff.
I don't think I'm experienced enough with how you guys run these meetings to give a definitive answer on where I stand. But just speaking from personal experience, I'm part of a student organization, and during my first year, I'm in my second year of school right now. During my first year, we had very scheduled weekly meetings, and we often find ourselves, booking the whole hour off for these meetings every week, but not having enough agenda on that not enough like agenda items to really justify having a weekly meeting. So now, as the internal vice president of that organization, I'm running, like, we pivoted and now we're doing monthly meetings, and sometimes even monthly meetings were not very necessary. We just found it more efficient if we just compiled all of our agenda meetings for like a rare meeting or like a less often meeting. And for example, if during the summer we don't have a lot going on, we can always just have this current meeting roll over to the next one, right? So if there's just not a lot of agenda items, my take would be, have it just added onto the next meeting, if that is plausible, if the next meeting allows it.
That's a really good suggestion, Jeff. Any other thoughts? Go ahead, Joel.
I mean, unless somebody else wants to share something, I just wanted to again change the proposal a little bit, just to try to bring together what I'm hearing. Like maybe it would just be in the agenda planning every week. We'll just make a read. We'll say, well, we don't think we have enough agenda this week, so we'll just send out a note, and we won't have a meeting this week, and we'll just save that agenda up for the following meeting. So then we're not making a formal decision to say it'll be every 2 weeks, but we have a mechanism so that we don't meet without really needing to. I think that's what I saw in Adonis's comment too, and Michael's comment about making sure that we do the prep that we need to do. That would still allow us to do that.
So is that equivalent to saying that the agenda planning meeting has the discretion to cancel the meeting if it doesn't feel it's necessary?
That's what I'm saying, yeah, and that would be based on the amount of agenda. So that we're just we'll when we have an enough of an agenda to carry a meeting, then we'll do that.
Adonis, go ahead.
Go ahead, Adonis.
Yeah, sorry, it might be loud. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Okay, great. Yeah, I agree with this. I just want people to know that we actually don't have enough quorum to change any decision, but I don't see what we're doing right now. If this is the actual proposal, it's any different than what we have done in the past. So it's really not a decision, but if we're gonna go with any other decision, I think we'll have to wait till we actually have the number of representatives that we decided on last week.
Agreed. If Joel, are you looking for a decision? If so, might have to call some of the market residents to join our meeting today. Is that the goal of the agenda item?
I don't think we need to belabor it. I think I think probably what Adonis is saying makes sense. We can just sort of say that we'll continue to do this practice. Maybe there's a slight shift in that we might sometimes meetings have been canceled like the day of, and I think it's better for the group if we cancel them a couple days ahead. And then when we focus on trying to get enough people for those meetings. But it perhaps also is like we've had other discussions. We're not having as many people now, and maybe this might help with that discussion as well. If people are not having to try to keep time aside every week, they can do it like at a less frequent rate.
Yeah, well, I think I just want to remind everyone, we did have a conversation at our previous meetings where folks shared their availability and they change in availability. For example, Ilona is not free until now, actually 1:30 to join us. Adonis and other folks are not available at certain times in the evening because of that course. So I think it's important for us to actually maybe have a decision on one of the items related to the change in time, because that will also lead to an increase in turnout, like specifically in participation. So I'm actually going to just message some of our market residents or members of the planning committee to encourage them to join us so that we could move forward with the decision on that item, or defer it to a future meeting where we'll make that decision, because that's going to have an impact on participation.
Hello?
Yeah, Michael, you can go after Adonis. Adonis, go ahead, then I have you next.
Yeah, Walied, I just don't see, first of all, the course is going to end, and we only going to mess up 2 sessions in the evening. So unless there was a problem in terms of the times before that the course started, then I don't think we should make any changes until and if we are considering changes, then we should get the feedback from, if there's a survey going out, we should get the feedback from that first. So, I mean, people have been showing, well, participants who are part of the planning committee so far have been showing up on the 2 Thursdays, the one at 1 and the one at 5, until the UFT course. So why would we change it? So I would say that. And also, we can't make a decision today. So why don't we just leave it as it is with the provision that the planning committee, which always had the right to do, could cancel meetings if they felt that the agenda wasn't packed enough to do so. So, which is essentially the status quo, staying as we are. And that, again, doesn't need a decision. Otherwise, we can't really make a decision anyways today. And why make it when we don't have the quorum from everybody?
Exactly.
Okay.
Good feedback. Okay. Michael, go ahead.
Okay, so on the quorum, I mean, if the people I thought I heard were there, then you only need 1 additional resident, which could be either Market or TCHC, because if Gail is still there. So that would be one thing. The other thing is, on terms of like decision, I think there is a slight change if we say that the Agenda Planning Committee can cancel a meeting, because otherwise the only way to cancel a meeting would be the previous week at a planning committee, which we wouldn't always know in advance if there's enough agenda items. So it'd be useful to clarify that if the new idea is that the Agenda Planning Committee can cancel a meeting. And it would be useful to get an additional resident, or however many we need today, because it's not just that item, but the scheduling of the evening meetings and the location of the stakeholders table that we would really be better off if we did make decisions today.
So Michael, a quick update. Gail is not with us, so we don't have quorum. So I'm going to recommend as a facilitator that we defer this item to our next meeting. Okay. So the next item, Ishmael, if you don't mind just sharing that on the screen, I'm going to request that we defer that item as well, based on the feedback we just got from Adonis. because we haven't even got the survey results yet. So I'll quickly just go through that. And the item is specifically relating to changing the day of evening meetings to accommodate SDP members, residents until April 4th. So I'd like to defer this item to the next meeting based on the feedback that we will get from the survey. And I'm gonna go ahead, Michael.
Sorry, there's a problem with that. Next meeting is not only conflicts with the course, but also the TCHC, whatever they call it, community update meeting.
That's a Friday, I think. That's the 29th.
That 29th is the next
Thursday.
Guys, sorry.
That will conflict. So can we just defer this item about the evening meetings until the end of the meeting and see if anybody else can be obtained by then? Because if we don't make this decision, it's definitely going to be a headache.
Okay, that's good advice. What do folks think? Based on consensus, should we defer till the end? Yeah, Jeff has his hands up. Adonis, go ahead.
I really don't understand the issue. Like, if there's a meeting on the February 29th, we just cancel why can't we just cancel it? I don't see how this is different than our cancellations of meetings in the past in terms of the planning committee making the agenda committee making that decision. I think to rehash this issue all over again when people aren't here, it's just a waste of everybody's time right now. And I think we just skip this item and we'll talk about it the next time the planning committee meets.
To me, this is more an issue of whether we set the quorum at the right level, because we weren't supposed to set a quorum such that, like, half of our meetings can't happen. Because in the past, we canceled a number of meetings, but I know we're almost always canceled by a planning committee. And now we could be doing the same, except the quorum is preventing us. So I'm going to say that the real problem is that the quorum should be lower.
Okay.
Michael,
so we can make a decision right now, which is difficult. So back to Adonis, and I think we're all on the same page that we will like to follow the decision that we've made about quorum. We're not changing quorum right now. So as a facilitator, just to make sure that we keep on moving, I'm going to recommend that we defer this item later until we do have quorum. So whether this meeting or at a future meeting. So I'm going to now welcome Abba and Jeff to speak to the survey and the changes made to the survey. So Abba and Jeff, you have the floor.
Thank you, Waleed. I will let Abba lead this one because she'll cover the first part of the survey and I'll cover the latter half. Abba, just real quick, do you want me to share the screen or could you handle that?
Yeah, could you share it if you don't mind?
Okay, for sure. I got it.
Thank you.
All right. Can everyone see this all right? Okay, I see Waleed giving a thumbs up. So
we see it.
Cool. Abba, I'll let you go ahead.
So based off the feedback that we received at the last meeting, we cut down the survey from 10 questions to 6. I would even say 5, seeing as the last one is kind of dependent on your situation. But our first question still stands as, are you a current member of the Regent Park SDP or a member of the Regent Park Neighborhood Association, just to gauge who is answering the survey? And then our second question just refers to what type of meeting arrangement you would prefer. Still talking about in-person, hybrid, and online options. We haven't like a text box to see why anyone would like to do have these as their preferences, but we could also add that if it's necessary. And our third question also focuses on child minding, since that's been a recurring issue. We also decided to take out if you needed child minding, if you were going to be attending meetings virtually, because that might be a little bit difficult to organize or just not feasible in the long run. So yeah, that's the first half. I'll pass it to Jeff now.
I see that there's two hands raised. We can address those first. I think it was TCH Tenant who raised their hand first.
Myself. Okay, so in question number 1, I don't think you should have the SDP member and Regent Park Neighborhood Association together, because if you're going to put yes, which one is it?
Okay, so
I think that
would
should
it be
be
better if we
separated.
just keep it as
Yeah.
okay? Okay,
Hey,
I
that young
see.
lady, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that's
what
an
is
easy change. Thank you for pointing that out. There we go. Just copy that. There. So I separated those to their individual questions. Anything else?
Yeah, sorry. So is this just to ask for the SDP? What does RPNA have to do with, sorry, with the SDP?
That's a good question, Ines. The Regent Park Neighborhood Association is a stakeholder of the SDP. As you're aware, the co-chairs of RPNA are also co-chairs of the SDP, and many of members of the RPNA are also involved with the SDP. So I think it's important to gauge whether they're either involved with the SDP or involved with the neighborhood association, so that if they're involved just with the neighborhood association, we can encourage them to be involved with the SDP and otherwise.
Hello?
Can I?
Oh, sorry. I think Adonis had his hands before
Yeah.
after Ines. So if Ines doesn't have any more questions, I think we should move to Adonis first.
I gotta agree with Ennis. Regardless of whether or not you're a member of the Regent Park Neighborhood Association, you may or may not come to the SDP. Good. So this is about the SDP, not about the Regent Park Neighborhood Association. They meet differently. They meet different meetings. This is about the SDP. If members of the RPNA want to get involved, there's nothing to stop them from getting involved with the SDP. This is about the SDP. I don't think we should have the Regent Park Neighborhood Association. That's one. And the second thing is I think on the question number 3, based on how likely you'll be attending, I think it should be about attending what? We are talking about the planning committee. Are we talking about the working group committees? What are we talking about when you say attending? So if we're talking about the SDP planning committee, we should be there. So how likely will you be attending the SDP planning committee meeting based on whatever it is? So that's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it's easy enough. We can just take out number 2. I see what you guys are talking about. I think we can just keep the first question as, are you a current member of the Regent Park SDP? And I've added the SDP Planning Committee meeting for the third, or I guess second question now. Anything else?
Hello?
Yep, I can hear you.
Michael, go ahead.
Okay, so hopefully this is useful information, but it's also like, I think that the people we would want to come to the planning committee are mostly the people who are already involved in the working groups. So asking the general community, like the question you'd probably want to ask them is, would they want to come to working groups? And then the people who are in the working groups, you'd want to ask them, would they want to come to planning committee? Now, given that this is just a survey and any information might be useful, I mean, sure, you can ask the general community if they would come to planning committee. But, I mean, normally, I don't think that's what would happen in most cases. So, but I think the wording here will be fine. I mean, as long as we get some information about people's availability and that kind of thing. But it's also, I think we should remember when we're making the final decisions that it's really the working group members who would come to the planning committee. The other question is just about the provisions for children. I mean, presumably we will eventually start having in-person planning committee, and I don't remember us ever having those child care situations at every planning committee. So that would be a huge additional expense if this was going to go beyond stakeholders table and working groups, and now all planning committee meetings would have to also have somebody on staff. So I don't know if anybody has thought about where that budget is coming from.
Yeah, thank you for the insights, Michael. I agree with you, but for the child mining part, I remember when we were initially talking about creating a survey, this was one of the points that were brought up. And in the notes that Ismail sent me on what we want to include in the survey, this was one of the services that we were providing, because it is a challenge for people, right? Especially if the meetings are going from 5 to 7. A lot of people get off work at 5 to 7 and they have to cook their kids dinner and they have to take care of their kids. So if it is something that we think, or it is something that people have expressed will more likely help them be able to make it out to these meetings, then I think we should definitely at least explore that area. As for the as for asking the working groups to come to the SDP Planning Committee meetings and ask the general public if they would like to come to the working group meetings, I will leave it to the rest of you to give me a little bit more insight on how exactly that works, because I'm not exactly sure what the tendencies there are, so I can't exactly speak on that. But I did see that Ismail had his hand up earlier, so I'll hand it off to him.
Thank you, Jeff. I just wanted to add that, again, this survey was for the planning committee, like Adonis mentioned, and specifically the planning committee meeting in person. So I think asking or directing questions towards working groups and vice versa, I think we're kind of doing a scope creep of the survey. So maybe we should just continue our focuses and keep our scope narrow just on the process of having in-person meetings and the requirements that residents would need for those in-person meetings. No, that's all I wanted to say. Michael, I hope that helps kind of give you context.
Yeah, it's okay for the survey, but I think that when it comes to the actual decision, we will have to take into account some of these additional distinctions, but the survey can go out as we're thinking.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I see that Adonis has his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with you, Ismail, but the other thing is that it's assumed that when people answer, go to question 1, in terms of are you a current member of the Regent Park SDP, it assumes that it could be the working groups as well, right? Are you part of the working? So we already mentioned that. So really it's about whether they would, what are the barriers, or whether they would participate in the SDP Planning Committee. I think that's our goal here.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100% there, Adonis. And some of these, maybe I should have finished wrapping up the survey before we opened up to questions, because some of these, I guess, some of these latter 3 questions do address the concerns that were brought up. So I'll just go through these now. So number 4, following number 3, is just, opening the chat box on what other challenges prevents people from coming to these SDP, let me add, planning meetings. For example, working late, requiring a pet sitter, poor internet connectivity, because right now we're doing online meetings, and the other scheduling conflicts in general. We just want to see what challenges are posed to us in general. Number 5, please propose other meeting locations besides the Daniel Spectrum building and elaborate on the reasoning for choosing that location. This was another question on the notes that Ismail sent us that we were told we would expect, that we would like to get more information on the survey. And per the request and feedback from last week, we added the latter half, which is to asking people to elaborate on why they would choose that location. And finally, the last question is just, if you are a member of the planning committee and are unavailable in the evenings on Thursdays, please select an alternative time and day slot for meetings to occur instead. And for these, Abba and I just combed through the SDP calendar to find some empty spots of time. Now looking at this, there are some times that obviously clashes with other RPNA events, but this is just to, see if anyone would prefer like an earlier time in the afternoon, for example, how we're doing it 1 to 3 right now, but it was on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then later on into the night for Wednesdays and Thursdays, just to gauge what people's preferences are. And overall, we shaved down the survey a lot to make sure that we can at least keep it in one page, because I want to say it's Ilona who brought this up last meeting, but it would be good if we can hand out physical surveys, because not everyone has access to an online survey. They can't always fill it out. And if we do in-person surveys, it's better to keep it nice and short. Ines, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, at the bottom where you guys have Wednesday and Thursday, 7 to 9. With me, that's, I wouldn't like it at 7 to 9. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and we totally considered that it might be too late for some people, but we're just throwing the times out that are empty enough to see what people's preferences are. If nobody chooses those times, then obviously when we get that feedback from the results, we won't choose a time that nobody voted for.
Michael, we hear you. We just have Inez who just spoke, then we have Adonis, and then you. Adonis, I'll let you speak. And
yeah, I'm curious why we don't have the 5. Following Ennis's point, why we don't have the Thursday 5 to our current time, basically, and as well as the Thursday 1 to 3 time.
Thursday 1 to 3 time.
Well, why don't we have those 2 times that we usually meet?
Because I believe, okay, that's actually a good point, because if we are sending this to the general public, they probably don't know that the current meetings from Thursday to 7 to 9. I will include the fact that current meetings are normally from 5 to 7, and I will add the time slot of Thursday 1 to 3. And while I have you, Adonis, is there any other time slot that you think people would prefer?
No, I'm just curious as why we don't have, I mean, you could say, the planning committee currently meets on twice a week, between 1 and 3 and 5 and 7, twice, whatever, like by week, by month or whatever. But also have those 2 times in there as well. Right, the Thursday. The other thing I wanted to say is your location. So number 4, why not add location as part of the other challenges that prevent people from meeting? And then number 4, add location. And then number 5, if location is a challenge, please, if the Daniel spectrum is a challenge, then you could say, please, suggest alternative location, because generally meet at the Daniel. That's our goal too, right? And meetings are actually held there. So you want to know if location's a problem, then let us suggest another location.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. I just added for number 3, meeting locate far from meeting. I feel like there's a better way for me to word that, but for now I just left that as far from meeting location as one of the challenges. And for number 5, I reworded the question to say currently meetings are held at the Daniel Spectrum building. If that location is a challenge for you, please propose other meeting locations and elaborate on the reasoning for choosing that location. Go. All right. Michael, what you got?
Okay, do you have a time question for 3 p.m.?
You mean starting from 3 and going to 5?
Yeah.
We don't, but I could add it on. What are some days you think that time would be very good for?
Wednesday or Thursday.
Wednesday. I mean, we already have those at Thursday right now. I just added in the question that the current meeting time is Thursday 5 to 7. And I'll
Right.
add another option for just to see if people are okay with the current time. Thursday.
Yeah, but okay, so 3 would be different from the current time.
Okay, yeah, I'll for sure add the Thursday as well. Thursday 3 to 5. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah. I mean, you might add that for other days. I'm definitely not available on Tuesdays at that time, but other people might be on.
Yeah,
Monday
we saw
or
that
Wednesday.
Tuesdays and Fridays are normally seems to be off limits, so we just didn't really
Right.
even bother with those.
Okay.
Wednesday.
So Monday, Monday, or if you're going to go and look at Monday and Wednesday, I would add the 3 o'clock. The other one I would add is 6 o'clock, because I really can't get a clear sense of like what the evening issue is. Is it too late, too early, or whatever? But some people meet at 6 o'clock on weekdays, so I think that should be an option.
Well, that makes sense to me because if most people get off work at 5, it would make more sense, and I feel like people would be able to make it better if it's just 1 hour after work. But I'll hand it back off to, I think Adonis had his hand up first. I can't tell. Oh, and it's just lowered hand.
Yeah, just quickly, the current meeting time is Thursday. I would put 1 to 3 and 5 to 7. But you have the 5 to 7, but you don't have the 1 to 3 in the brackets.
And then I'll have to add another column because I feel like because right now the last column just says the current meeting time works best. Then I will make it the current meeting time 1 to 3 and current meeting time 5 to 7. I'll have those as 2 different options.
Well, that's what all of these are.
Okay, there we go. Anything else? Oh, Joe, go ahead.
I think we do. And we came up with this idea of, I'm putting a suggestion in the chat, by the way, for the text of the top part of the text of number 6, just to name that there's alternating meeting times. But I wonder is there a way to incorporate that idea more deeply into the question? Because it is a practice that we've had for a long time, for reasons of availability of residents.
Yeah, I see what you mean. If something ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And thank you for what you typed in the text box. That is a way better way to put it than what I had. So just so I got you clearly, you're saying that maybe we should suggest in the question that this is the time that, after trial and error works best for most people.
Maybe it's a second. Sorry, I mean, I know you're trying to get rid of questions, but maybe it's a second question or an A and B type thing, where or maybe it's not even a question. Maybe we just tell people we meet we alternate our meetings between afternoon and evenings. Given that, what times would be good for you? I mean, I don't know what folks think or not. Like, are we proposing just getting rid of the alternating meetings, or anyway?
I'm not opposed to adding another questions, but just so I'm getting you clearly, maybe we should format as something like the current meeting times alternate between 1 to 3 p.m. and 5 to 7 p.m. on Thursdays, and just have a yes or no question for whether those 2 alternating time slots work for people. And the next question is, if you answer no in the last question, can you pick between one of these times to see if those work better for you? Would something like that seem more efficient?
Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe we can just keep it as it is, because we can still alternate. Like, if we decide to change the meeting time, we could still have some meeting times in the afternoon and some in the evening. So that doesn't,
Okay.
maybe it doesn't impinge on it. Maybe I was not connecting to this question in a way that doesn't necessarily have to be.
Yeah.
Having the current
I do.
is
Yeah, I
good.
do see where you're coming from. So maybe what I thought of just off the top of my head is to move the last two columns, which is the current meeting time works best. How about I move those up as the top options, just so
Yeah.
like it's more up there. I feel like that is
Sure.
a minor change, but I do feel like it could have
Yeah, that
some
makes
degree of
sense.
significance. There we go. And Adonis, I saw that you had your hand up. Go ahead.
To follow up on Joe's suggestion, I think it's not clear that we're looking for 2 days, evening and afternoon day. And maybe that should be in at the beginning of 6. The planning committee meets on 2 alternative times in the evening and in the afternoon. Alternates between the evening and the afternoon.
On Thursdays, okay.
Yeah, on Thursdays and yeah. But what the point is that we're actually looking for 2 times, not just 1 time. Right?
Okay. And then I will just mention, then please select 2 times and day slots, something like that. Please select 2 best options, something like that, because we're asking people to choose 2 among all of these options, right?
Yeah.
Please choose.
I think given that we actually are reducing the options to, we only have 4 options now. One is the current meeting time. One is the set for Monday. Second is the set for Wednesday, which is 3 options, but it's still like we want them to pick among those 3 just for Wednesday. And then, oh, the 4th is actually Thursday still. So maybe we should, sorry.
So do we have to pair them together? Like if the votes suggest that people would like, for example, Monday 1 to 3 and Wednesday 7 to 9, do we necessarily have to have it on the same day?
I would suggest we do. And the reason is
Okay.
so people don't have to try to remember, well, what day is the meeting this week? So maybe it is 2 steps. First, choose your day, and then the second step is choose your meeting time.
Hello?
Oh, Michael, what's up?
So I don't think it's necessary to ask people like which combinations of dates or make this complicated, because when we get answers, when they're available, that will tell us whether we need to have alternating times or even, if necessary, alternating dates, although I hope we don't do that. So really, we just want to ask people which times they're available. And I hope this is going to get them to be able to answer like more than one, so each person can give all the times they're available. And that way, it just becomes a list of times and dates. I don't like it. There may be quite a few of them, but people will just check off the ones that they're available. It's still pretty simple, even though there might be many choices. So I still think we should keep in the option of 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock and 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock. Maybe we should keep in 7 o'clock, although I think that's probably the least likely to be accepted. But and if even if each of those has to be appearing with several days, like sure there might be like 15 options altogether, but they're basically, it's a simple check off. It's not like we're not asking people to make combinations out of them or whatever. We're just like, which of these times are you available? And I think that's like, we'll have to figure out the combinations after we get the results back. So I think that we can still keep it reasonably simple for people to fill out, even though there might be 10 or 15 choices.
Yeah, Michael, that's a good point. So what I'm hearing is maybe we should just have these as tick boxes and just tell them to tick on all the ones that all the times that work for them. And once we get the results back, we can analyze which days work best for people and maybe choose the top 2 most convenient time slots to have it as alternating. And I also just made a quick change. I changed all the 7 to 9 p.m. dates to 6 to 8, because thinking about it again, 7 to 9 is pretty late. I don't think anyone would really want to go to 7 or 9 p.m.s. But yeah, Ismail, I think you raised your hand. Wait, sorry, I think Adonis raised his hand before that. Sorry.
Yeah, there's two questions I would ask, and maybe a context at the beginning, that what is the planning committee all about at the beginning? And then so that people understand what the planning committee does. And then the second question is, or the second change that I suggest is on the last question, the one about the days that we're talking about.
Sorry, just give me 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
Up the context, please. Yeah, go ahead.
And then the last thing I would talk about, you have, if you are a member of the planning committee. It's not if you are a member, it's really if you are interested, or if you are an SDP member and would like to be involved in the planning committee. Then what is your availability? You know what I mean? Something like that. We're not saying, yeah, if you are a member of the planning committee, it's not only that, but people who are interested in being part of the planning committee. Yeah, and that would be the revision to number 6.
Oh, that would be revision. Okay.
Yeah, to number 6. Because you say should be if you're interested in attending the planning committee.
I think I can remove this and our unavailable part, because later on we already talk about the current times.
Yeah.
Meetings.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Good.
Anything else? Okay, cool. I think Ismail had his hand up, and I think it might be because this was supposed to be a 15-minute segment, but we kind of went way past. But thank you for everyone on your feedback, because I'm sure you guys have been in this association for longer than me and Abba has. So all the insights are very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, great work, Abba and Jeff. We look forward to the changes that you've made and promoting that amazing survey to residents of Regent Park. So thanks once again. Can we move on to the next item, Ishmael? Just if we could put that up on the screen.
We definitely can. I just wanted to bring to attention that we had one more point as part of this, and it was the action plan. So we have the survey. Now it's about how we're going to do it. Are we able to talk about that during this meeting?
Sure. So I think when those changes are finalized, maybe what we could do is I'm gonna ask members of planning committee if Jeff and Abba make the suggested changes. Are we comfortable with finalizing the survey today with those changes? Adonis, go ahead.
It's a hard one because that would be a decision, wouldn't it?
We do have quorum for a decision, my friend.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay. Yes. So yes, I'm comfortable with Jeff making those changes in terms of finalizing the survey. Yes.
Thank you, Adonis. I'm gonna ask other members of planning committee, and what I'll just for consensus, just so we can move towards consensus. I'm gonna ask: is there anyone opposed to the proposal of Jeff and Abba finalizing the survey based on the feedback we got? Ines, you have the floor.
Question, it has to be 3 TCC tenant and 3 private, right?
No, 1 TCC, 1 market, but in total 3. So we have we've met that requirement.
No, the total is 4.
4, yeah.
So I don't know that you've met that requirement in terms of residents. Maybe you can identify who are residents.
So I am a resident, Ines is a resident, you're a resident. I'm assuming Ishmael is a resident as well. But
Ishmael is an employee. So he cannot share both roles. So, you know, I don't know that that would be appropriate because he's not committing his voice as a resident, he's committing his voice as an employee. Ismail, am I incorrect or am I correct?
I see
You're
both.
right, Gail.
Yeah, I see both points being made. I don't know.
Yeah, you cannot be
I don't know.
like, so think of Ismail Afra, who works for TCHC. He is a resident of Regent Park. When he is working, he is working. He cannot make a decision saying, I'm doing this as a resident. I'm working, I'm getting paid by that organization. But and again, we can go ahead and, you know, if you're gonna make this change, then people have to agree this is the way that you want to go. So we just have to, yeah. Anyways, Adonis is flagging.
Okay, so we'll hold off on that decision until that expectation is set. I don't want us to have a differing viewpoints after this meeting. But why don't we talk about the action plan? And then when we do have the quorum to make a decision, we can. So Ishmael, you proposed an action plan.
Yes.
So could we get started with that conversation? Adonis, you're the first person, and then I'll put myself on the speakers list. Go ahead, Adonis.
Yeah, I would say that there's nothing in our terms of reference currently that says anything about employees not who are residents can't be involved in decision making. There's nothing that in terms of the working committees that would alleviate that point. If that's something that we want to put in, then again, that's a decision making that we should do. If we want to hold off on that, really, that's fine. But there's nothing to stop staff member who's a resident from decision making and be part of the decision making. We haven't come to a policy like that. So I'm just flagging that, and let's, you know, I don't want to. We can leave that debate till another time, but let's move on.
Okay, we have Ines next, and then we'll move on to the action plan for this piece. We'll hold off on a decision on the survey until we feel comfortable. Okay, Ines, go ahead.
Okay, so Ishmael, I love you, but it's just right now, like Il said, he's working. You cannot wear the double hat. It's like Dini is as an agency, and if she wants to do it as a resident, that's not how it goes though, right? That's it. If you're there as an agency, you cannot, it's like me coming here and I'm an agency and then I decide to vote as a resident. That's, guys, we have to be very cautious with that. That's not how things work. If they're here as an agency, you cannot switch in the middle because you need a vote as a resident. We cannot do that. Thank you.
Ines, thanks for making your point. Adonis, is that a new hand or an old hand?
Again, I didn't want to bring this up, but in the past, Mershada, other staff members, residents who have been employed as outreach workers were able to make decisions at this SDP committee. So why are we changing that now? So that's all I'm saying. If we want to make a decision about it, Ennis, it's not, we have done this in the past. So yes. But we can have that decision, that debate about it, and I'm happy to have whatever policy that wants, but you can't say that we haven't done that in the past. We have. We've always done that. Members who have been employed with through the SDP have always been involved with decision making at this committee.
Thank you, Adonis. We'll go to Jeff and then Gail, and then I'm gonna just give my opinion as a facilitator on how to best move forward. So go ahead, Jeff, and then Gail.
Yeah, if I may, there are some parts of the survey that's not completely polished out yet. For example, for the second question, we're talking, we're asking people their preference in terms of the meeting modes. We have placeholder words right there right now with like parentheses, description, and in the front after Adonis just propose that there's a little parenthesis that says context to what the SDP Planning Committee is and what these meetings normally cover. So the survey is not completely finalized. There's still stuff that we need to work into it. So from what it's seeming like right now, I feel like it might be a good idea for us to work on finalizing the survey. Well, not finalizing, work on polishing and finishing the survey as as its own thing. And meanwhile, we get the numbers or get the quorum that we need to make a decision on the action plan. That's just what I think.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much for that constructive feedback. Appreciate it. Next we have Gail, and then we'll move on. Michael, you want to speak to this?
No,
Michael.
no, the action
No.
plan.
Okay. Action plan. Good. Okay, Gail, go ahead. We want to focus on the action plan. Gail, are you with us?
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. Oh, Miguel, welcome. Welcome to the meeting. Gail, do you have something to say?
I think she just stepped out for a minute, guys.
Okay. So I'll just put that hands down. So why don't we talk about the action plan right now? And maybe what we could do, this is my advice, is let Jeff and Abba make those final changes and let's bring it back to planning committee. We do have quorum to make decisions. We have 5 residents in the meeting right now, 1 Market, and the rest of us mostly TCHC. So I think we have the ability to make a decision. So let's move on to the action plan.
Thank you. So we have this great survey, but we don't know how we're going to put it out. Is this going to be digital? If we're doing physical copies like Ilona suggested and Jeff was agreeing with, how do we do that? You know, like I don't want to continue with this pattern that we have here at planning that I notice sometimes. Not to call anyone out, but like we do all this great planning work, but we kind of lack when it comes to the execution. So I just thought maybe if we can talk about the execution part of this, it would help us make sure that this gets out and gets out appropriately. Adonis, I see your hand up. Gail, but is that a new hand?
Yeah.
Are you back here, Gail?
So my question is why are we already have a SDP stakeholders membership list.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we send it through the stakeholders member, like as we would any stakeholders meeting, we send information through the stakeholders through the Regent Park stakeholder email. So send it out online to everybody. Why would we change anything like that? I mean, yeah, we could do extra promotion, let people know that we're doing this if we want. But for the most part, it's the SDP members that get the information.
Okay, thank you.
And sorry, just one other thing, and we could recommend that all the working groups encourage their members to fill out the survey as well. Just a second part of that, right? Yeah. Get the co-chairs to make sure that everyone does the survey as well.
Okay, that's a good point, Adonis. I would like to add that we should try to use all the platforms, the communications working group, make sure that's on the Hello Neighbor app, make sure that our partners send it out through their listserv, whether it's TCHC, Tridel, Daniels, the Regent Park Community Health Center, YSM, etc. Why don't we just make a very intentional ask to get the survey out, because we want to reach out to as many residents as possible, so we can collect as much data as possible about the needs of residents that we hope to engage with through the SDP and its committees and working groups. A question to Jeff and Abba. Do you folks feel comfortable with the feedback you got today to finalize the survey and send us the final version, say by next week, just for us so that we could just quickly approve it and get it out to the community?
Yeah, I actually just sent you and Ismail the link to the Google Doc with the editor access.
Okay.
I'm guessing Abba and I might need some help with filling in on the blank parts. For example, the context on what exactly the SDP planning committee is, and the and what is done at the meetings, and also the what exactly what in-person, online, and hybrid meeting look like. I remember that during the very first meeting that I was on, we were talking about how if we want to do hybrid meetings, we might have to get some special equipment. So still not exactly sure on how that will look like, but would appreciate the help from you and Ismail to fill in those blanks. But yeah, it shouldn't be that difficult to finalize the survey by next week, because I was actively putting in all the suggestions as we were receiving them.
Awesome, thank you. Abba, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think Jeff covered everything quite well. I was just curious about how, one, just distributing the survey. I think in a previous meeting, we also discussed, people may not, well, not having access or good access to internet, which may be an issue if we're sending the survey completely online. So I think we should also maybe think about other ways to distribute the survey. But I'm not sure if that would be completely feasible, because I think it might just be a little bit tricky. But I think just working on that and discussing it might be beneficial as well, so that we're not just solely relying on internet if it's an issue that people may face.
So having the survey in different platforms, not just online, so like a physical copy of it. I love that idea, Abba. Thank you so much. That's about accessibility. Excellent point. Okay, any other suggestions with regards to the action plan for distribution? This is a very awesome conversation, my friends. Pretty brilliant people, all members of planning committee. So what we will do next is we will finalize it and provide context to the feedback that was offered by members of planning committee, and we'll bring forward the final version at our next meeting. I didn't see anyone opposed to the survey or its content, which is good, but we'll make sure to bring it back and make sure that there's a decision based on consensus. Are folks comfortable with that way forward? Yeah. Thumbs up if you think it's okay. Yeah, I see Ishmael. Thumbs up.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes,
Miguel. It's good with it. Okay. Anyone opposed to that idea moving forward? Joel's thumbs up. It's good. Michael, you comfortable with that?
Okay.
I see a thumb up.
Is there a quorum now?
Yes, there is.
All right.
Okay.
Can we make a decision on the next 3 evening meetings?
Yeah, we have
Is Gail's
one
hand up still?
Gail, is that your hand still up?
Or that old?
Or is it an old one? Because I think that was an old hand. And Ishmael, since you're the host, do you mind when people have stopped talking, just put their hand down? Because it confuses me as a facilitator. I just want to make sure. Because you have that ability. I can't.
You're
My
right.
hand's not old. Black, but it's not old.
Gail, are you speaking to this item? Hello?
Sorry, I had to leave my desk, so I'm not even sure what the item is. But I raised my hand with I raised my hand with respect to just the differences between, I think, how Dini doesn't vote, and how I think it was said that Murshida does. So that is just something we need to clarify. That's it. That's all my comments are.
Sounds good. So Ishmael, do you mind facilitating the next portion related to the evening meeting? We have quorum, so we could make a decision on that. And then we'll go back to the EED support.
Sure. So just to bring it back, let me go back to my notes that I have here. But now that we have quorum, we want to see if we can make a decision to meeting less often and even changing the day of the evening meetings. But the first over here is to meet less often. Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
So the proposal for that was simply to leave it to the discretion of the Agenda Planning Committee, whether or not any particular meeting can be canceled.
You're right. So let me repeat the proposal, just so everyone's clear. So the proposal for that item is that we continue meeting weekly, and depending on the agenda, we can cancel the meeting, like we have done in the past. And another option was, if we don't have any agenda items to be discussed or that we need to meet about, we can use that allotted time for something else within the planning committee, such as shaping culture training.
Oh boy.
Michael, I have you next, and then I have Adonis.
Yeah, I just think we should pick one of those. So, because if we need to put in something else in the time period, then it's not really canceling the meeting. Like, you can't do that on 2 days' notice to change the subject. So that just becomes the new agenda. So if, for instance, we need to be planning for a stakeholders table, then that can be the agenda. I think the cancellation is a separate matter. So can we just keep this to just if the Agenda Planning Committee wishes to or believes that there is no need for a meeting at all, then they can cancel it. I think that's the proposal. Anything else about what goes on the agenda is just a regular meeting, except that there might be a particular agenda. So that doesn't even require any procedure changes. But if we're going to give the Agenda Committee the ability to cancel a meeting, then I think we should just be clear about that, because I don't want it to be like, oh, who canceled this meeting? We didn't know why this happened or whatever. So just to keep this simple, the only decision that's actually needed is that the Agenda Planning Committee can cancel the Planning Committee meeting if there are insufficient agenda items.
Thank you, Michael. So I am checking to see if there's anyone disagreeing with what Michael just relayed. Michael, I'm getting a lot of static. I'm just going to mute you for a quick second if you're done speaking. I don't see anyone in the chat box. I don't see anyone raising their hands to speak. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say that we have consensus on this item, and that now we will continue to meet weekly. And the difference is now that the Agenda Planning Committee, those people that attend agenda planning, will now be able to cancel the meeting depending on how the agenda looks. So if they think that it's unnecessary to meet, then they would cancel the meeting right after that. Okay, so that is that item. The next one is changing day of evening meetings to accommodate SDP members. Did we want to defer this? I know we have quorum. Sorry, Adonis, I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, I thought we decided that, also, no, not a decision, but yeah, since we are doing a survey, that we would defer this decision until after the survey results come back.
Hello?
Thank you, Adonis. Michael, go ahead.
So this is, I don't know like how this is worded this way, because you're right, that wording is very unclear whether it's talking about the long-term change or the short-term change. So the long-term change will, of course, the decision will be made after the survey. The short-term question is for the next 3 evening meetings only. And that decision has to be made before the survey, otherwise we just won't be making a decision on it, because those meetings will be over before the survey is completed. So I think the only item that needs to be discussed right now is the next 3 evening meetings, which are the 29th, the 14th, and the 28th. And I would propose that we cannot cancel them all because we're going to be into planning for the report back. So the best solution, as far as I'm concerned, is cancel the 29th and change the 14th and the 28th to 3 o'clock on the same day.
Michael, I'm just noting down your proposal here, your amendment rather. Do we have anyone that disagrees with Michael's proposal that we do make a decision on this now? I think that's a good idea. We should make a decision on this now for just to see if we have to change anything until April 4th, which is when the classes end. And so Michael is proposing that we cancel the meeting on the 29th, which is next week, and then also to find a new meeting time for the 2 meetings after that. Adonis, you unmuted yourself. Did you want to speak to that? Go ahead.
I think Michael is saying, yeah, cancel the 29th, but the next 2 meetings actually is not he's proposing to meet from 3 to 5. And really, I would say it's really up to everybody's here. As long as they can make the 3 to 5 meeting on Thursday, then we should go ahead.
So since Murshida isn't here today, I did call Murshida Ismail Afra and I spoke with Inez about changing the days. Murshida did say that she's unavailable Thursdays, like whatsoever. Class, work, both together. She's just unable to do Thursday. So no matter what time slot we change, she won't be able to attend. Ismail Afra said that he doesn't feel that he should be attending the planning committee meetings because he holds no leadership role within the SDP. And so he doesn't want to come. And I'm just clearing this up because people asked me to reach out to them. And then I know Inez is here with us today. She did say 3 p.m. is okay, but Inez, if you change your mind, I'll let you speak on that now.
I'm okay. It's just like I said, I'm busy with a lot of it too with the Regent Park Cafe. Right now I'm attending on Zoom. There will be maybe days that I won't be able to attend. Right. Yeah.
Okay, so Inez is okay with that. Adonis, is that an old hand? Thank you. Michael, did you want to speak? I keep hearing static.
I'm not sure. I think we're clear now. We're just talking about those 3 days, right? Like anything else we do in the future is not part of this decision today.
Correct.
It's just what we do on those 3 days.
Correct. Okay, so I don't see anyone opposed to having 3 p.m. meetings rather than the 5 to 7. So I say let's make that change. But canceling next week. Michael, can you remind us why we're canceling next week?
So, I mean, yes, we could still do the 3 o'clock if we wanted to. There's nothing conflicting with that. It's just that, you know, people were looking for the opportunity to cancel a meeting, and this is the only one that makes any sense at all to cancel because it's sufficiently far in advance of the stakeholders table, and there are 2 other evening events that time, so maybe people wouldn't even want to do a 3 o'clock meeting. So I'm okay with doing either doing the 3 o'clock or just canceling it.
So then we'll propose that we cancel next week's meeting. Is there anyone who disagrees with that? I know this means that Abba and Jeff won't be able to present the final edited copy of the survey. Perhaps a few of us can meet to just give a thumbs up.
Yeah, I think what we can do is share it next week when it's ready, and then just ratify it at our next meeting and then get it out. And thank you so much, Abba and Jeff. Really appreciate your work on this.
All right, I don't see anyone disagreeing with canceling next week's meeting. So the final decision then, next week's meeting will be canceled, and the evening meetings following that will be at 3 p.m. instead of 5. I will make sure that I send an email out so that all the SDP members know of this change. And I think that ends this item. Michael, did you want to add something to that?
Well, just clarify that it's just those 2 meetings that are changed to 3 o'clock.
Correct. I'll read out the date right now so we know for sure. So February 29th will be canceled. And then February 14th and 28th will be changed to 3 p.m. instead of the 5 p.m. So we'll start at 3 p.m. and end at 5 rather than starting at 5 and ending at 7. Okay. So I'll just make a note to send an email. The next item, while I write that down, EED support finding co-chairs. We have 36 minutes, recognition, location of SDP, stakeholders table meeting. Okay, this is a quick, just for information for everyone. Sorry, Gil, I just saw you raise your hand. Did you want to speak?
If you're talking about EED, so the EED has a let's call it a committee. We've had co-chairs, absolutely, who are resident co-chairs, and then we have a committee of stakeholders. The committee includes Daniels, Tridell, YSM, Dixon Hall, and basically what we do is we try to go after people who are supporting employment and economic development in Regent Park. And that's why it's been set that way. What I need everyone to understand here is that we have to be respectful of the work that folks are doing. I am not a co-chair, but I'm still, of course, working with EED. Ismail is not a co-chair, Ismail Afra, but still working with EED, right? We are doing that work. They are in the process, actually, they're meeting this evening to talk about how they want to, finding co-chairs, and then their plan is to then bring it to the planning table. And what we have is an email that came out with, here's how it's going to go by one person, right? And that's not, and that letter or that email did not include those folks that are currently doing the work at the EED table. I mean, we have 5 projects on the go. Those folks are working on those projects, right? And they deserve the respect to say, I know that you don't have co-chairs. How can I help? Not, I know what's best for you. I'm going to do it for you without consulting them. So I've spoken to them as well. And you know, this is my work time, 1 to 3, and I really don't come on these calls, but I came on this call because I saw this, because this was a surprise to all of us. Can we not do this, please? Right? Like people are here doing the work, and now they're feeling like, what are we? We're not important. We're not doing the work. We're not respected enough that you can at least come to us and say, hey, you know, what help do you need from me? Are you just going to go ahead and just do it? So yeah, let's not, please. The EED committee is working through this, and they are going to come to the planning table and ask for your blessing, if you want to call it that, about what they propose, or get your inputs. They're not running off half-cocked, and neither should we. In my comments there.
Thank you for sharing the update, Gil. Waleed, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so I just want to provide context and correct some information that was said earlier by Gail. So we were approached by the agency co-chairs of the EED because there was no resident co-chairs, both market and TCHC. An email was sent to the SDP co-chairs, so that is Leah, myself, Marlene, and Ines. We met with representatives of Tridel, Daniels, YSM, and I don't know if Dixon Hall was represented. We talked about a timeline for the recruitment of the co-chairs. We talked about the interest that we've heard from residents who want to pursue leadership role as co-chairs. And what I did was put together a proposal based on that meeting, which Gail, you didn't attend and you might not know about. Fatma did attend, and I just saw an email from Fatma, so I will be reaching out to Fatma to make sure that we're all on the same page. But that's a timeline that we agreed to. And what I was hoping that we could do today is get feedback from Planning Committee on what we discussed with the stakeholders. So if, you know, I don't know, I don't want to say this, but it seems very disruptive when every single time we're trying to move forward with proposals or trying to make decisions that we hold ourselves back because of the discomfort of one or two members of our Planning Committee. But I don't have time to debate this at today's meeting. If we want to wait until we get more advice from the EED, you know, residents who are involved with EED, and then bring it to planning, that's fine with me. I just want to make sure there's resident input into what the proposal will be and the timelines that will be implemented. So what I would like to do is not have this it's not for decision, it's just to receive this information. Please provide suggestions, or if there's any changes or challenges you see in what we discussed with the stakeholders. I think we met last week, if not the week before, I have to remember the date. But let us know so that at least we incorporate those suggestions in the final proposal. We just canceled our next meeting next week. So if we don't get feedback from Planning Committee and move forward, then that is not helpful. This is the role of the Planning Committee. So I want to make sure that we discuss it here at a bare minimum and then provide suggestions to the agency co-chairs. Thank you.
Hello.
And I'm going to respond to that and say that group of people said that did not happen and that they're working through a process. So we should allow them to do that. And an email came back from Fatima explaining that as well. No one needs to be disruptive about anything. No one needs to be disruptive about anything. That is what they said. Nobody's being disruptive. This is the information from them. Being disruptive is sending an email when they didn't ask you to send one. That's being disruptive.
Fatma left the meeting early. She was not party to the conversations after. So Fatma is wrong and misinformed on this. And I'll correct that.
Hello.
Michael, before I get to you, we had Ines who had her hand up. Ines, go ahead.
So I'm going with the regarding about the co-chairs. I know you guys are talking about this and stuff, but as the stakeholders co-chair, Marlene has been there, I think, more than 3 years. So they need to look for a new person in there, because I thought it was the 3-year term, right? For as a co-chair.
Is this, sorry, Ines, because I'm facilitating the meeting. Could we add that as an agenda item for a future meeting? Because it's going to sidetrack us from the stuff that we need to talk about.
No, hold on, Walied. Like, I know I was asked to speak, Walied. I didn't interrupt.
But it's a different agenda item altogether.
I know, but I'm just putting it there, Walied. Like, please don't do this.
I'm not doing anything. I'm just following that we're going through an agenda.
You know what? Like, the thing is, this is a problem because you guys only want to use when it's convenient for you, but it's like, let me finish with my thoughts.
Ines, is it to do with the EED proposal or not?
Bye, guys. Bye.
Okay, bye, Ines. Can we move on, please? So I'd like to request folks, to provide feedback on the proposal related to the EED co-chair selection so that we could share it with our agency co-chairs. Thank you. So feedback, we'll go with Miguel first, then Gail. Miguel first, then
Yes,
Gail.
I totally agree that if an item needs to be added to the agenda, we can participants can send an email putting on writing their intentions for the next agenda and with background information as well. Thank you.
Okay, Gail, go ahead.
Hello? Oh,
And then Michael.
sorry.
Yeah, my comments remain the same. Again, I've spoken to this group and they've asked that they're going to take a look at this. They are actually meeting this evening, so anyone can join. And I'm sure that that is the email that was sent out, and allow them to go through that process and then bring that information to this table. We do have a terms of reference at the EED table, and that's what we are, and that's what they're working through, right? So we should allow them that grace. Anyone can come to the meeting and also provide their comments.
Thank you,
I
Gail.
don't think any agency would stop them from providing their comments. We've never done that. They've never
Good.
done. Hello.
Good, thank you. Michael, go ahead.
Okay, so I mean, I did hear sort of different things about this. I did hear that Ibrahim was stepping down. At one point, I heard that the organizational people were also stepping down. So I guess that's not true from what I'm hearing today. So it is good that they are going to have a meeting tonight. I may want to join that, although I'm not sure how that's taking place in person, on telephone, or what the story is. But that's it's good to see that something is still being kept going. So that's good. I think that's more important, that to keep those people involved and keeping it going, rather than just sort of pushing for elections, like for the sake of having a vote, because that doesn't always necessarily solve the problem. But so more important that this meeting is going to happen tonight. So I can get some more information about that. Yeah, so at least that's still happening. That's good.
Thank you, Michael. I just want to let you folks know that the proposal that was shared with the planning committee cites the responsibilities of the co-chairs as per the SDP terms of reference. I didn't know there was an EED separate terms of reference. And Gail, if you could share that with Ishmael so he could circulate it to members of planning committee, that would be greatly appreciated. And the details of tonight's meeting, the co-chair, the agency co-chairs will be having. What time, location, is there a Zoom link? That will be helpful in soliciting feedback from members of planning committee and other residents who want to inform the process. Thank you. So Ishmael, it was shared by email to folks who are part of this meeting. But if you want to circulate that proposal to other folks and the details of the meeting tonight after today's meeting, that will be helpful. So we could get residents' input onto the process because we would like to have both a market and TCHC co-chair, basically selected by residents as soon as possible, whether it's through an election or through consensus. And I'll try to track that information and send it to you after this meeting. I'll email the agency co-chairs for those details, okay? Okay, any other speaker on this item? Please review it. We're not gonna take too much time, but please let us know if there's something that we missed. Go ahead, Adonis.
Yeah, I just want to support like that decisions of the committees are made by the committees themselves before they go to the planning council, like the planning committee. So I want to keep the integrity of the working groups, that those you know, unless there is somewhat, you know, that a decision is somehow contrary to either the SDP terms of reference or to the planning committee, that these decisions are impact the committees, are made by the committees. So we shouldn't really change that.
Exactly.
Just
I agree with you, Adonis, that that's not the intention of this agenda item. It's to inform folks about the need for EED co-chairs, what the conversation was with between myself, Marlene, who attended the meeting, and Leah. Ines was unable to join us. So the three of us did meet with Fatima and from Daniels and other reps from Tridel and TCHC as well, and YSM. So, you know, Fatma left at the beginning of the meeting, so she might not be aware of the conversation that how it concluded. So I'll correct that on the record via email, so there's no misunderstanding or conflict. So we're all on the same page. But I agree with you that this should come from EED to planning, but we want to engage members of planning committee as soon as possible to inform their proposal before it comes to planning. So this is the opportunity to do so, okay? So that way we don't make decisions on our own, it's made by folks at planning, correct? Okay, we're now going to move on to the next item on the agenda. Do you mind sharing that, my friend, on the screen?
So that's this item over here, the recognition part?
Yes. So can we quickly, can you share the proposal that was emailed to everyone? So this is also for feedback. It's not for decision. So don't worry. We're not making a decision. We're just soliciting feedback, my friends, for this item, okay? And after people's input, just like we did with the survey, we'll build consensus to make a decision. So Ishmael, please share the proposal for recognition. And if you don't mind, help me just go through the sections. I'll really appreciate it.
Sorry, Walied, I don't see it.
So I'm just flagging that it's 9 minutes to 3. And also, I just want us to maybe go back to the minutes of the meeting where we talked about recognition. I believe that was last week. And the recognition was to do this thing for the report back specifically. But the proposal here seems to include anything, meetings, etc. So we seem to be out of scope with the proposal. So I just want to make sure we're aligned, because last week we made a decision around recognition at the report back event.
Gail, just to respond to that question with regards to what decision we made, we didn't make a decision. We discussed recognition. And what we did is we talked about having a portion of that recognition be part of the report back, which is part of the proposal.
We'll have the minutes here, and then we can all be aligned on that.
Sure.
So that
Sure. We can look at that. But why don't we let Ishmael just quickly share that? Ishmael was sent in response to the agenda. When you sent the agenda, it's the same email thread, and it's a link to a Google Doc. And I can put that in the chat if you like.
I have the email open. I'm just trying to find it. Got it.
You got it? Perfect. Thanks, Ishmael.
All right, Walied, the floor is yours. Could you walk us through your proposal?
Yeah, do you mind just starting it off? Just because of this deputation that's happening at 3 o'clock.
Just grouping up.
Aren't we able to look back at the decision from the minutes first?
Okay, so I'll just read up the minutes. So about the recognition piece, Walied proposed that looking to recommend recipients, groups, and individuals of recognition of members at ST meeting will be creating a nomination form. And then Gail just suggested that we be careful on the condition that some people have done a lot of work, but not part of SDP anymore. It can make some people feel uncomfortable feeling that they're not being recognized, they're not being noticed. So Gail just suggested that we be mindful of that. So the proposal here, again, does read, recognition of members at ST meeting will be creating a nomination form. So recognition of members at stakeholders table meeting. We concluded this item. Walied suggested that he will bring it back to planning with actual process to make it more clear and the presentation of the draft process. So now I'll go ahead and I'll read the draft process and I'll let Walied chime in whenever he sees fit.
Thank you, Ishmael.
No worries. Proposal for recognition within the Regent Park Social Development Plan. Introduction. The Regent Park Social Development Plan, SDP, represents a collective effort to achieve our goal of social cohesion and inclusion by fostering community growth, achieving safety, enhancing communication, and promoting economic development. Its success is a testament to the dedication and hard work of residents, agencies, grassroots organizations, funders, and stakeholders. Recognizing these contributions not only celebrates achievements, but also strengthens community bonds and encourages continued involvement. This proposal outlines a recognition framework focused on the contributions within the SDP's 4 working groups and committees. And then the proposal lists the working groups and committees. We have community building, safety network, communications, and EED, which are the 4 working groups. And then the committees include funding and resources, planning, terms of reference, evaluations and benchmarks, and CBOG, Community Benefits Oversight Working Group. So the recognition process is outlined as number 1, nomination and self-nomination. Create an open call for nominations and self-nominations, ensuring all community members are aware and encouraged to participate. This can be facilitated through the SDP's communications channels. And the second part of it is develop a simple, accessible nomination form that can be submitted online or in paper format, asking for basic information about the nominee and a brief description of their contributions. So that's all under nomination and self-nomination. The second part is selection criteria. So establish clear, fair criteria for recognition based on the impact of contributions, level of involvement, and commitment to the SDP's goals. Form a selection committee comprising diverse SDP stakeholders to review nominations and select awardees. 3, recognition categories. Designate categories for recognition such as outstanding leadership, exceptional community service, innovative solutions, and lifetime achievement to acknowledge various forms of contribution. And then we have a list of recognition ideas. So we can have recognition events, hosting annual or biannual recognition events to honor selected nominees. These events can be part of broader SDP meetings or standalone ceremonies, and then include performances, speeches, presentations that highlight the work and achievements of awardees. The second recognition idea is feature stories. So publish feature stories on the SDP website and a newsletter detailing the contributions of recognized individuals or groups, providing them with a platform for wider community acknowledgement. And the third recognition idea, certificates and awards. Provide certificates or symbolic awards to recognize individuals and groups signifying their contributions to the Regent Park community and the SDP. The last idea is spotlight at stakeholders table meetings. Allocate time during stakeholders table meetings to spotlight recent awardees, allowing them to share their experiences and achievements with the broader SDP community. Implementation timeline, phase 1, 1 to 2 months, development of nomination forms. Phase 2, 3 to 4 months, open call for nominations and promotion through SDP channels. Phase 1 also includes nomination forms, criteria, and selection committee formation. Phase 3 would be 5 to months 5 and 6, I believe. So I think these are 2 months each for each phase. Selection process and planning of the recognition event. And then phase 4, months 7 and 8. Execution of the recognition events and publication of featured stories. In conclusion, recognizing the contributions of those involved in the Regent Park Social Development Plan is crucial to sustaining community engagement and fostering a sense of achievement and belonging. By establishing a formal recognition process, we celebrate the hard work and dedication of our community members, thereby reinforcing the values of collaboration and mutual support that are the foundation of the SDP. Next steps, seek feedback on the proposed recognition framework from SDP stakeholders, finalize the recognition process, and begin implementation planning. Lastly, allocate resources and establish partnerships to ensure the success of the recognition initiative. Oh, that was a lot of reading. Adonis, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a really good proposal. So thank you, Walied and others who worked on it. The only thing that I feel is missing is some kind of establishment of a committee, a nominations committee that will receive the nominations and work through the items in this proposal, such as what are the categories, yeah, and so a clear committee that will work on this about how many members, what is the composition of the committee, conflict of interest, things like that. That is really important to have. So that's the only thing that I would say that's missing from this.
Thank you, Adonis, for bringing that up. I did make note of that. Joel, I see your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, also thanks for the detail here and the thought that's gone into it. I have one couple of thoughts. One is I wonder about just making this whole process be applicable to people who are no longer part of the SDP. That would address the concern about, some people feeling left in, left out, to at least largely, I think. Because there's a lot of people who've contributed a lot to the SDP. And I think it would be great to recognize them. The other one is perhaps a bit bigger. I'm maybe missing something here. But like, I'm not sure if what does it mean to have a timeline that extends out past the time of the reference group and the refresh that the city's leading? I think we should maybe grapple with that a little bit and think through what is the way that we want to relate to that process. Now, I know that's a much bigger thing, but it does seem to me, I guess in the context of this agenda item, that makes me think about what is our narrative that we're telling about how this whole project of the SDP is evolving and will evolve in the next 6 months or so.
Walied, are you still here to respond to that?
Yeah, sorry, Joel, I caught that. I was on my phone and battery just died. So just thinking about the last portion of your question, I missed the first part, so maybe you want to repeat that. But the reason why I suggested that we think about recognition across the board, not just at the planning table or the planning committee, but all the working groups and committees of the SDP, is because that's been lacking. We've not been recognizing the contributions of residents, agencies, and other stakeholders in supporting the SDP. And this will help tell the important story of the impact of the social development plan. So I'm hoping that this could set a foundation for best practices that all working groups and committees of the SDP can implement. I'm not sure if I addressed the question you had, but if there's something that I missed, please do let me know. Oh, yes. Thank you. That's a good example. Joel reminded us that when I stepped down as co-chair, was recognized for my contributions. That's actually one of the motivations that I had. I had a really good experience. It made me feel, respected. My work and contributions was acknowledged, and I want to make sure that other residents and other folks have have similar experiences. So thanks for that important reminder, Joel. Really appreciate that.
Gail, I see your hand, and then we have Adonis.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, so again, I'm going to reiterate, and I asked for the recording as well. You just read the minutes, which said that, we were bringing a proposal to recognize, well, it said planning table, but we said we would recognize them at the report back. And that's what I voted on, because as I clearly said, I would not go ahead with a recognition program for all, like a massive, because it's absolutely important. Every benchmark, every study research done has told us that human beings need recognition. Every organization is implementing such a program. Part of the challenge here is we are in this kind of uncertainty with this whole refresh coming. We do have a lot of challenges happening, and they seem to be very much personality based. And I think it's important to recognize one does not have to go to the whole caboodle. We are at a planning table. There are 3 residents here, maybe 4 if we're lucky. If we are not able to say in every single meeting, hey, I'd like to recognize Ismail for his work on, Ismail for calling me to say how you're doing today. If we are not able to do that simple thing, why is it that we believe that there needs to be the pomp and circumstance of recognizing people? Because face to face in our own circle, we seem to not be able to do that. But now we want to have a pomps and circumstance to say, oh, yes, I recognize you. So my proposal certainly is that we start with the low-hanging fruit, if you want to call it that, or the small and simplistic and simple and meaningful things. That we institute a space where people can recognize each other at the start of the meeting, same as we have already end of the meeting, same as we have a kind of standing items. One of those standing items can be recognition, because we are all doing great work in our community in different kinds of ways. There are people who are not here that are part of the SDP. The Women's Circle is part of the SDP. Phenomenal work being done by them. And there are many others, right? And frankly, we could recognize everyone because they've done phenomenal work. But let us start with a simple gesture of recognition that every time we have a planning meeting, someone is willing to raise their hand and say, I'd like to recognize this resident, this agency, this person for something they've done. That's where I'd like to leave that. But this for me is a bit much for where we are at in our maturity level and the uncertainty that we're at. But absolutely recognition must happen.
Thank you, Gail. Adonis, you want to go next?
Adonis, you're muted. I'm not sure if you're speaking.
Sorry. I like Gail's idea as well. So I think that they don't have to be contrary to each other. Both could happen. I suggest that, we could bring it to the culture group to suggest ways that we could make more informal/formal recognition of members who have been involved with the working committees to be recognized at each planning committee meeting or at the committee level. Maybe that's something we want to adopt across the board, like you spend the first instead of icebreaker, or in content with the icebreaker that we recognize the work of our members. So that could happen. But I think this idea that the proposal is really about making more awareness of the work of the SDP and the group and the people that are involved in it, and promoting awareness of the SDP on a larger scale. And that's what I see the value of this event. And to answer Joe's question, I guess the question is whether this is something that we formulate after the refresh or as part of the refresh to go into that work. I think that needs to be thought of because this doesn't seem like it's going to be an easy proposal to do. So I support Gail's position, and I just would like to have a structure for that could come for the committee, or Gail can bring a proposal itself around that that goes to the culture committee. And certainly would like to see this piece happen, but I'm proposing that it may have to happen as part of the refresh yeah, so that's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you, Adonis. I think it'd be important to seek other feedback from other members of the planning committee before we make a decision on how to move forward. I think we have consensus that recognition is important, and we want to do it in the most feasible manner. The proposal does outline that recognition can happen at the working group level and the committee level, and it can also come from the planning committee. So the committees and working groups, to be very specific. So I think what we could do is share this proposal with folks, get their input, make the slight adjustments that need to be made, and also figure out how to resource it. Adonis, you brought a really important point about timing. Is it going to happen after the SDP refresh process or after the strategic planning for the SDP is complete, or before? I think that's a decision that we will have to make as a group on how to move forward. But thank you so much for that feedback. I really appreciate the questions, especially the resource implications of recognition, and maybe coming up with a business plan for the 50K so that it's resourced as well. Okay, so those are really solid points. Thank you so much for the suggestion. It's 3:10. We've extended our meeting by 10 minutes. Is that the last item on our agenda, Ishmael? Adonis, is that an old hand or a new hand?
It's a new hand. I just want to make sure that Ennis's point is on the agenda for a future meeting.
Yep. Put it on the
we'll put it on the agenda.
Thank you.
Adonis. Anyone else have any recommendations? Michael, go ahead.
So, yeah, I would like to know if we still have some plan or intention to do strategic planning. Because I do have some ideas, either to do that sort of in between the meetings of the refresh, or else to do something else in between, and then to do the strategic plan at a different time. But I'd like to know if we are still, like 2 or 3 meetings ago, we seemed to be very interested in keeping that strategic plan going and not being like just absorbed into the refresh, to do it as a distinct process. And I'd like to know if there are still active members who want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, can we, Michael, put that on the agenda for the next meeting? I think there was interest, but some of the folks who have shown interest are not at this meeting. So it'll be good to get their feedback as well. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll make sure that's on the next agenda. Okay, folks. Ishmael, is there any other pending item that we may have missed?
The one about location of the SDP Stakeholders Table meeting.
Could we defer that to the next meeting after you've had conversations with folks about and whether it's available?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so that's the last item. Okay, my friends, I just want to wish you a lovely rest of the afternoon. It's 3:15. Our planning committee meeting will adjourn. Thank you. And thank you, Abba, and thank you, Jeff, for your amazing feedback today. Thank you. bye,
If
everyone.
anybody's still on the call, can somebody share the information about the meeting tonight with employment?
See you guys. Thank you for the.
Michael, I will
See you.
I'll call you as soon as I get the details, okay?
Okay.
All right, thanks everyone. Bye.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And please follow our social media platforms. And for more information, please visit our website.